period from 2015 to 19 has been higher for India than for China, in each one of these three metrics, which is the growth in manufacturing gross value added, the growth in merchandise exports, and the growth in manufactured goods exports. I think that is something which is very important that we must take into account. This has not been the case in any of the previous periods. We're showing you the 2005 to 2010 and 2010 to 2015 five-year periods as well, where India clearly lagged behind on these metrics, compared to China. But now on growth, India has surged ahead. So I think it's important also that, to take into account here that each of these three periods, India's base is lower compared to China for sure. So we are actually doing an apples to apples comparison, and the fact that the growth rates have been higher in this five-year period is something that is noteworthy. And if you look at the sectoral patterns, you see iron and steel, you look at chemicals, machinery, and others. These are sectors where the growth, the CAGR has been much higher for India compared to China. So this is something which is an emerging story, and I think policy has played a very important role in enabling it. But going forward, we expect even more vibrancy to come, from this. This is, I think, the start of possible good news on manufacturing, based on data that we have till 2015 to 2019. As I said clearly, and if you look at the reasons why this has happened as well, on the left side you see the national highway length, because logistics costs are a very important determinant of the overall competitiveness and the overall costs of manufacturing firms. So the national highway length has increased significantly. Power, which is the other important input, into manufacturing, peak energy deficit has gone down significantly. So power has become far more reliable, and reliability or lack of uncertainty or certainty in power and logistics costs makes a big difference to the overall manufacturing as well. So these are two key inputs: logistics and and power. If you similarly look at the average distance covered by trucks per day and the number of highways, number of lanes in national highways, those have also improved significantly over the last 10-year period. Similarly, if you look at the turnaround, major ports turnaround time, if you look at over the last decade, clearly improvement. So I think the important message that comes through here is that what you are seeing in this particular chart, the first chart in manufacturing, is because of the focus on several systematic factors that have actually hobbled Indian manufacturing: power costs, logistics costs, cost of capital, etc. And these are improving, I think, which is something which is very important for us to take into account when we think about the growth going forward. This has happened actually. Similarly, the tax rate cut has also made India very competitive compared to other jurisdictions, and that is also something that has helped in this aspect. So clearly, this is just to summarize the manufacturing sector growth. There's been critical policy support to strengthen physical infrastructure, to boost productivity and bolster global competitiveness. The integration of GST and FASTag has actually enabled this. Competitive tax rates have also enabled. Together with that, the labor reforms that have been done, and the change in MSME definitions, the PLI scheme, all of these will also add to these effects that have already manifested. And so we can expect as these reforms are actually carried through, the impact of that on the manufacturing sector should be felt going forward. So so to summarize, in terms of the growth outlook going forward, firstly, hysteresis is something that is quite unlikely, because the formal sector has emerged very well from the crisis. Informal sector, even though it has been impacted, the nature of its production means that it will be less impacted by the by hysteresis. Second, financial sector, which is very important for in providing funding for investment, has actually emerged stronger from the crisis. And finally, and this is very important in terms of the policy push, manufacturing sector, there are clear signs in the data on the outcomes and the causal factors, which is your logistics costs, your power costs, etc. Reduction in those is contributing to these outcomes. So I think when you start putting these together, I think that clearly can lead us to believe that India, this year, this decade should actually have good growth going forward. And that is what, so our team here has actually done an estimation of the potential GDP, the impact on investment, the impact on the productivity, and thereby what will be the growth going forward, in the decade. So we've considered various different scenarios, a baseline scenario which has inflation at 4%, that's the deflator at 4%, which is the midpoint of that 2 to 6% range. Investments good inflation has been taken as the median of the past 2 decades. The sectoral investment scenarios actually are we've factored in increase in the manufacturing share, and that is because of the important policy push and the change that has already manifested with services declining a little bit because manufacturing gains. Services actually will increase in nominal terms and actually in rupee terms, but share will go down as manufacturing actually increases a little bit. Buoyancy of net taxes, because this estimation is being done as GDP plus equal to GVA plus taxes minus subsidies. So that buoyancy has been taken at 1.2. The growth in nominal investment has been taken at the median, not very ambitious at all, at just the median for the last 2 decades. And the incremental output capital ratio increases to the 60th percentile for manufacturing because of the aspects that I already showed, and in mining sectors because of the reform. For all the other sectors, the incremental output capital ratio, which is a measure of productivity, remains at its median value. That's the baseline scenario, but there are other scenarios as well which should manifest the impact of the reforms that have been done. There are 3 optimistic scenarios that have been factored in. One where there is only a change in productivity. So the incremental output capital ratio for all sectors increases to the 60th percentile, not very large, just an increase from 50th to 60th percentile. The optimistic investment scenario is where the growth in investment increases to the 60th percentile rate of growth. And another optimistic scenario where both investment and productivity go up to the 60th percentile. I must mention that this analysis is motivated by a lot of evidence that has been provided in the last 3 surveys, that savings is actually not as much of a constraint for investment because savings pro-cyclically responds to growth. I would request those that are interested to refer to the 2018-19 economic survey and this year's economic survey chapter 2, 2018-19 survey chapter 1 and chapter 2 in this survey, if they are interested in finding out the micro assumptions that actually is leading us to project investment rather than savings, because of the pro-cyclical movement in savings, that we've shown clearly evidence of in these surveys. There's a pessimistic scenario that has been built as well, which is the COVID hangover leading to the incremental output capital ratio falling to 25th percentile in the informal sector. So clearly, as you can see, we've taken a more impactful scenario when we are considering the pessimistic case compared to the optimistic ones, where we are only moving from 50th to 60th percentile, but in the pessimistic we're actually taking it from 50th to 25th percentile only for the informal sector, because as I've clearly shown the evidence, the formal sector has emerged very well from the pandemic. And the no COVID scenario, which is just the counterfactual, if COVID had not happened, what would have been the growth rate that is taken as the average of the growth rates of the previous 3 years, FY 18, 19 and 2020. Based on that, we actually have various different scenarios. In the baseline, which is actually the black chart here, growth over this decade will be 7% plus, will increase a little bit, start hitting close to 8%, a little more than 8% in subsequent years. That's the baseline. In more optimistic scenarios, growth will actually be higher and will ramp up even faster compared to the baseline. While in the pessimistic scenario, growth starts at about 6.5% and then increases to a little more than 7%. While the no COVID scenario growth remains, actually that's the average that is basically just taken as mechanical. So clearly, given the dynamics that I've highlighted, which is the absence of hysteresis, financial sector emerging well, manufacturing growth happening, and the policy emphasis on reforms, second generation reforms, each one of which actually are focused on enhancing competitiveness in the in the factor markets. The analysis shows that will have an impact on growth as going forward as well. Let me summarize then the outlook. India is likely to have double-digit growth in this year. The overall growth for the first half has been 13.7%, so even a little more than 6% growth in the subsequent quarters should be able to deliver double-digit growth for this year. And thereafter 7% plus over different scenarios. I think the impact of seminal second generation reforms will unfold in terms of both investment and in productivity going forward, and that is what we've shown using the potential growth estimations. And I think finally this is a concern that given that we are still amidst the pandemic and the Omicron variant, the variant seems to have actually created some concern. I think that we are all waiting for evidence to come on how infectious would it be and how debilitating would it be as well compared to the Delta variant. If we look at the research that's been done on pandemics, typically as a virus converts, mutates to become an endemic, typically the infectivity increases, but the virulence does, but the devastation that it creates in terms of mortality, hospitalizations, and serious cases typically does go down. But I think that is something which we cannot latch on to because evidence on this still has to come through. There is research or there is statements being given by doctors on both sides. There is a South African doctor who's basically said that it may not be that bad, but there are others who are actually pointing out that maybe they don't agree with that assessment. So I think this is something that we'll have to wait, which then means that we all have to continue following the COVID protocols, till we are out of this. We are not out of it till we are actually out of it. With that, I would like to thank you all for not only today but for the entire education. This will be my conference as the Chief Economic Advisor. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank each one of you for being so cooperative and actually helping us carry our messages on the during a very important phase of the Indian economy and the global economy. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Now we will open the floor for questions. First, I am calling Ajay Mishra from Doordarshan.
नमस्कार सर, हमेशा की तरह बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग और डिटेल्ड ये प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस रही जीडीपी के बाद, और भविष्य के लिए आपको बहुत शुभकामनाएं। आपने इस साल के लिए जो जीडीपी का ग्रोथ प्रोजेक्शन दिया है वो डबल डिजिट में दिया है। मैं चाहता हूं कि महंगाई दर को भी लेकर के आप इस पूरे साल के प्रोजेक्शन को हमसे साझा करें, और क्या अब हम ये माने कि जो फ्यूल प्राइसेस एक बड़ी चिंता का विषय थी, अब उसमें उतनी परेशानी की बात नहीं है। और दूसरी बात यह कि कोरोना पैंडेमिक के बाद जो भारत सरकार का फोकस मनरेगा जैसी योजनाओं पर रहा, तो गांव में वेजेस को लेकर के क्या स्थिति है, कि वहां पर चीजें बेहतर हुई हैं अगर ओवरऑल इकोनॉमिक सेंटिमेंट देखें?
अजीत जी, आप अपने प्रश्न का दूसरा भाग एक्चुअली दोबारा बोलेंगे, क्योंकि थोड़ा उसमें रुकावट आई थी। आप दोबारा बोलेंगे?
सर, मैं ये समझना चाह रहा था कि पैंडेमिक के बाद जब सरकार ने मनरेगा के ऊपर और जो गांव के ऊपर इतना फोकस किया, तो रूरल वेजेस पे क्या इम्पैक्ट पड़ा है और वहां का जो इकोनॉमिक सिनेरियो है वो किस तरह से जीडीपी आंकड़ों में या आपकी दूसरे जो स्टडीज हैं उसमें रिफ्लेक्ट होता है सर? थैंक यू सर।
धन्यवाद। आपका पहला प्रश्न जो था इन्फ्लेशन के लिए था, क्योंकि ये एक विषय है जिसमें कि काफी चर्चा हो रही है, इसीलिए मैंने उस पे काफी ध्यान दिया। जैसे मैं बतला रहा था कि भारत की जो नीति है, भारत की नीति न सिर्फ डिमांड पे, सप्लाई पे भी हमने काफी ध्यान दिया है, और इसीलिए मैंने एक ठीक तरीके से समझाने के लिए कि जब सप्लाई हम बढ़ाते हैं तो उससे जो है जो कीमतें हैं वो उतनी नहीं बढ़ती, तो ये जो है हमें ध्यान में रखना है। इसलिए मैं ये भी दिखला रहा था कि यदि आप ध्यान दें, जब 2008 और 2009 में जब ग्लोबल फाइनेंशियल क्राइसिस जब आई थी, उसमें जब हमने जो जिन नीतियों का अमल किया था, जिसमें सिर्फ डिमांड पे ध्यान दिया था, जिसके कारण जो है आपका जो महंगाई दर बहुत तेजी से बढ़ा था, डबल डिजिट इन्फ्लेशन में, और जैसे मैं आंकड़े दिखा रहा था 17% इन्फ्लेशन एक्चुअली जो हाईएस्ट 17% पे आया था। और ये इसलिए आया था क्योंकि जो तब की जो नीतियां थी वही नीतियां आज बाकी देश भी अमल कर रही है। भारत इसमें
So that was Dr. K.V. Subramanian.